To understand how to reclaim our minds, we must first comprehend the scale of the hijacking. Our journey begins not with an app, but with a molecule, dopamine, often mislabeled as the pleasure chemical. Dopamine is more accurately the seeking and anticipation chemical. It's the engine of motivation, driving us to explore, to desire, to pursue rewards. Social media platforms and the broader digital attention economy have become masterful manipulators of this ancient neurological system. Every notification, every like, every unpredictable refresh of a feed is a variable. Reward schedule, a concept famously identified by psychologist B.F. Skinner. When a reward is unpredictable, sometimes you get a fascinating post, sometimes a barrage of ads, sometimes heartfelt comment, the dopamine release is more potent and the compulsive behavior to check becomes stronger. This is the same mechanism that makes slot machines so addictive. Neuroscientific studies using fMRI scans have shown that receiving likes on social media activate the same brain regions the nucleus accumbens as taking cocaine or eating chocolate. The key difference is the frequency and accessibility. We carry this slot machine everywhere we go. The pull to refresh gesture is literally a digital lever pull. This constant low-grade stimulation creates what author and professor Cal Newport calls constant cognitive chatter. Our brains never enter a state of rest or boredom, which are historically essential for subconscious processing, creativity, and consolidation of memories. Instead, we exist in a state of continuous partial attention, always scanning, never diving deep. The consequence is a literal reshaping of our neural pathways. Research on neuroplasticity confirms that neurons that fire together wire together. The more we train our brains to jump from stimulus to stimulus, from a text to an email to a ticker to a news alert, the stronger those shallow, distracted neural circuits become, and the weaker our capacity for sustained deep focus. A state psychologist, Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, termed flow grows. This isn't a metaphor. It's a physiological change. Our prefrontal cortex, responsible for executive functions like planning, decision-making, and moderating social behavior, becomes overworked and fatigued. It's like a muscle that is never allowed to rest, perpetually twitching in response to pings. This leads to what Stanford researcher Dr. Anna Lamble identifies in her book Dopamine Nation as a collective downregulation of our dopamine baseline. We require more and more stimulation to feel the same level of interest or satisfaction, making the mundane but meaningful tasks of life, reading a book, having a deep conversation, working on a complex project for hours, feel unbearably dull by comparison. We become tolerance-built dopamine addicts, chasing digital hits, while our real-world goals, the ones that require patience and persistence, fade into the background, seeming less and less compelling. This neurological hijack explains why, after an hour of scrolling, we often feel more anxious and empty than when we started. We've consumed a buffet of stimuli, but nourished nothing. We've sought connection, but often found only comparison. The beautiful cliffside view we scroll past becomes a symbol of a life we are passively observing rather than actively constructing, because the very tool we use to see it is dismantling our ability to plan the journey to get there. Compounding the neurological hijack is a pervasive psychological prison, the comparison trap, architecturally enforced by the platforms themselves. Humans are inherently social comparison organisms. We gauge our success, happiness, and worth relative to those around us. Historically, our comparison pool was limited to our immediate community, perhaps a few hundred people whose lives we understood in context, with all their struggles and mundane realities visible. The digital landscape has exploded this pool to billions, and critically, it presents a curated, highlight reel version of humanity. We are no longer comparing our behind the scenes to someone else's behind the scenes. We are comparing our raw, unedited footage to everyone else's perfectly staged, filtered, and scripted premiere. This creates what researchers term upward social comparison, which consistently correlates with declines in self-esteem, increases in depressive symptoms, and a chronic sense of inadequacy. A seminal study published in the Journal of Social and Clinical Psychology found a direct causal link between time spent on Facebook and negative shifts in well-being, primarily driven by this comparison phenomenon. The cliffside ocean view during golden hour is no longer just a beautiful scene on Instagram. It becomes a metric. It is framed by captions about living your best life, accompanied by hashtags like #blessed and #wanderlust, and quantified by tens of thousands of likes. Our brain, already buzzing from dopamine loops, now processes this as a social benchmark. Subconsciously, we begin to believe that such moments are not just possible, but normal and expected for a happy, successful life. The quiet contentment of our own Tuesday evening is ruthlessly measured against this gold standard spectacle and found wanting. This envy isn't passive. It's actionable within the platform's ecosystem. It fuels what is known as aspirational consumption. We see the view, then we are shown the hiking gear, the airline tickets, the camera filter, the swimwear funnel, designed to convert our envy into clicks and purchases. The platform profits from our dissatisfaction. Furthermore, this comparison culture erodes our capacity for genuine joy and gratitude. When we experience our own version of a golden hour, a peaceful moment, a small personal victory, the instinct is no longer to savor it fully, but to document, filter, and share it, anxiously awaiting the external validation of like, to certify its worth. The experience itself becomes secondary to its performance. This creates a vicious cycle. We scroll, we compare, we feel inadequate, we seek validation by performing our own life, which others then compare themselves against, perpetuating the collective anxiety. The data shows this is not a minor issue. Rates of anxiety, depression, and loneliness have spiked in correlation with the rise of smartphone and social media saturation among younger generations, as documented by researchers like Jean Twenge. The architecture of these platforms often discourages authentic, vulnerable sharing that would foster real connection, because such content typically receives less engagement than polished, aspirational posts. Thus, we are locked in a theater where everyone is an actor, desperately applauding each other's performances while feeling increasingly isolated backstage. To break free, we must first recognize this theater for what it is, a brilliantly designed set, not reality. The path to authentic achievement and contentment lies not in trying to win an unwinnable performance on this stage, but in stepping off it entirely to build something real with our own hands and minds, away from the relentless glare of the comparative spotlight. If our dopamine is hijacked and our self-worth is tangled in comparison, the ultimate casualty is our ability to create, to build, to do deep work. The economic value of the 21st century has decisively shifted towards the ability to master complex systems, generate novel ideas, and produce work of incredible quality, what Cal Newport defines as deep work. Professional activities performed in a state of distraction-free concentration that push your cognitive capabilities to their limit. These efforts create new value, improve your skill, and are hard to replicate. Conversely, shallow work is non-cognitively demanding, logistical-style tasks, often performed while distracted. These tasks are easy to replicate and create little new value. The relentless pull of the digital world forces us into a perpetual state of shallow work. Every interruption, every quick check, shatters a state of deep focus. Research from the University of California, Irvine, found that it takes an average of 23 minutes and 15 seconds to return to the original task after an interruption. We are not multitasking. We are task switching, and each switch carries a cognitive residue that degrades our overall performance and intelligence for that period. The cost is staggering. A day fragmented by notifications and checks is a day where perhaps you were busy, but you did not build. You responded, you reacted, you consumed, but you did not create. The ambitious project, the skill you want to learn, the business idea, the novel, the meaningful craft, all of these require uninterrupted hours of deep focus, the very thing the digital world is designed to prevent. Consider the cliffside view. To actually get there, to stand on that cliff at golden hour through your own agency, requires a chain of deep work. It requires the focus to research the location, the discipline to save money for trail, the skill building to perhaps navigate or photograph it well, the logistical planning to execute the trip. The shallow, distracted mind will only ever experience it as a digital wallpaper. The deep, focused mind can engineer the reality. The data is clear on the depletion of this resource. Studies on attention spans, while sometimes debated in exact metrics, consistently show a trend towards reduced tolerance for long-form content and increased difficulty in sustaining focus. But more importantly, the quality of our cognitive downtime has been destroyed. Moments of boredom waiting in line, sitting on a bus, which were once fertile ground for mind-wandering, daydreaming, and subconscious problem-solving, are now instantly filled with scrolling. This mental space, often called the default mode network, is critical for creativity, self-reflection, and consolidating learning. By constantly filling it, we are starving our own creative and integrative processes. We are outsourcing our curiosity to algorithms, which then feed us more of what we already know and like, creating intellectual and creative stagnation. The path to exceptional achievement and personal fulfillment is paved with deep work, yet the entire modern digital environment is a war against it. To win this war, we cannot rely on willpower alone against armies of engineers designing for our engagement. We need a strategic, systemic defense. We need to restructure our environment and our habits to deliberately cultivate and protect periods of intense, uninterrupted focus, treating them with the same sacred respect as a critical meeting or a medical appointment. This means redesigning our relationship with technology from one of default access to one of intentional, scheduled use. The goal is not to eliminate these tools, but to domesticate them, to use them as deliberate instruments for specific tasks, rather than allowing them to use us as a constant source of attention and data. Reclaiming your mind requires moving from diagnosis to a concrete, actionable system. This isn't about deleting all your apps for a week. It's about a permanent architectural shift in your daily life. We will call this system the Cognitive Sovereignty Framework, built on 4 pillars: environment design, time blocking, intentional consumption, and analog revival. Pillar 1, environment design. Willpower is a limited resource. The most effective strategy is to make undesired actions impossible and desired actions easy. Start with your phone. Turn off all non-human notifications. No social media badges, no news alerts. Your phone should not be a slot machine. Next, perform a digital declutter. Unfollow accounts that trigger comparison or mindless consumption. Curate your feeds to include only education, inspiration, and genuine connection. Use website blockers during work hours. Physically distance your phone from your workspace. The cliffside view is earned through a journey. Design an environment that supports the journey of deep work. Pillar 2, time blocking with thematic focus. This is the core engine. You will schedule every hour of your workday in advance on a weekly basis. Use a simple digital calendar or analog planner. Crucially, you will block large, multi-hour chunks for deep work on your most important goal. Protect these blocks like a surgeon protects a sterile field. Outside these blocks, schedule specific times for shell work like email and messages. Also, schedule deliberate consumption blocks for checking social media or news, perhaps 20 minutes in the afternoon. This transforms consumption from a default, reflexive activity into a conscious, limited appointment. Pillar 3, intentional consumption. Adopt the mindset of a nutritionist for your mind. Just as you wouldn't eat candy all day, don't feed your brain frivolous content constantly. Before opening any app, ask, what is my specific purpose here? Am I learning, connecting, or relaxing with intent? Set a timer. Use tools like RSS readers or curated newsletters to pull in valuable information on your schedule rather than being pushed content by addictive feeds. Seek out long-form articles, books, and documentaries that require sustained attention, actively rebuilding that muscle. Pillar 4, analog revival. Intentionally reintroduce friction and sensory richness into your life. Read physical books. Write with pen and paper for brainstorming and journaling. Engage in hobbies that require your hands and full attention, cooking, woodworking, painting, gardening. Take walks without your phone, allowing your mind to wander. These activities are not nostalgic. They are neurological rehabilitation. They engage different parts of your brain, slow down your thinking, and provide the boredom and space necessary for creativity and insight to emerge. Together, these 4 pillars create a fortress for your attention. They transition you from a passive consumer, scrolling past other people's cliffside views, to an active builder surveying the land, gathering materials, and laying the foundation for your own unique structural life and a body of work defined by depth, purpose, and authentic achievement. Implementing the cognitive sovereignty framework is not an end, but a glorious beginning. It is the act of clearing the fog so you can finally see the horizon and begin navigating towards it. The profound silence and focus you reclaim become the canvas upon which you paint a life of substance. This newfound cognitive capital is your most valuable currency. Invest it deliberately. Start by identifying one keystone skill or project aligned with your deepest interests, the thing that makes you lose track of time. It could be coding, writing, learning a language, mastering an instrument, building a business, or studying a field like philosophy or astronomy. Use your protected deep work blocks to assault this skill with intensity. Embrace the initial struggle, the unconscious incompetence, knowing that each focused hour is forging new neural pathways. This is how you transition from admiring the cliffside view to becoming a geologist, a photographer, a conservationist, or a travel writer who understands it. The sense of progress and competence gained from real skill acquisition is an antidote to the hollow validation of likes. It builds intrinsic self-worth that no algorithm can touch. Simultaneously, reinvest your reclaimed attention into your physical world and real relationships. The quality of your conversations will deepen when you are not mentally composing your next tweet. Your presence will become a gift to those around you. Pursue collaborative projects with people in the real world. Start a community garden, a book club, a local sports team. These activities create tangible, shared memories and accomplishments, the bedrock of true community. Furthermore, develop a practice of deliberate solitude and reflection. Use journaling not just for gratitude, but for thinking on paper, working through complex problems, planning your future, and understanding your own mind. This is where your unique philosophy of life is formed, away from the homogenizing pressures of online trends. As you do this, a fascinating shift occurs. Your relationship with platforms transforms entirely. You no longer log on to see what's happening out of boredom or anxiety. You log on with a specific professional or personal mission to share a piece of work you're proud of, to research a specific topic, to wish a friend happy birthday. You become a purposeful user, in and out in minutes, rather than a captive audience. The cliffside ocean view during golden hour, when you finally experience it for yourself, will not be a photo op first and an experience second. It will be a fully immersive, sensory moment. You will feel the salt spray, hear the crash of waves, watch the intricate dance of light on water, and sit in quiet awe without an urge to prove you were there. The moment will be yours, deeply and completely. And that feeling of authentic, unmediated experience and hard-won achievement will become the new reward you seek, a dopamine loop of your own conscious design, far richer and more sustaining than any digital phantom ever could be. The journey from distracted consumer to focused creator is the most important pilgrimage of our time. It is a quiet rebellion against a world designed to keep you scrolling, and a return to the profound human work of building, connecting, and wondering in the real, messy, beautiful world. This is your inflection point. You now possess the diagnosis and the comprehensive blueprint. The data is clear, the mechanisms are exposed, and the path forward is laid out. But this script is just information until you choose to act. Your mission, should you choose to accept it, begins not tomorrow, but in the next 60 seconds. Here is your immediate, non-negotiable call to action. First, put your phone on Do Not Disturb mode right now. Second, grab a piece of paper and a pen. Third, write down the one project or skill you've been putting off that would most change the trajectory of your life. If you mastered it over the next year, that is your cliff. Fourth, open your calendar and, before you do anything else, block out a 2-hour window within the next 48 hours to begin work on it. Protect that block with your life. This is your first act of cognitive sovereignty. The entire system outlined here, the environment design, the time blocking, the analog revival scales from this single decisive action. Do not let this be just another video you consumed. Let this be the catalyst. Hit pause, complete those 4 steps, and then come back. I want you to comment below with one word, your keystone skill or project. Let's make this a public commitment. And if you want a structured, week-by-week guide to implement this entire framework, a detailed plan to rebuild your focus and your life, hit subscribe and ring the bell, because next week, we're launching a deep dive series called The Focus Architect, where we'll build this system together live. But step 1 is yours, and it starts now. Put the phone down. Pick the pen up. Your era of deep work begins the moment you choose to act. I'll see you in the comments.